Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to TRUSTECH. Welcome to a conference full of insight on payments, innovation, security, and all the interesting and insightful topics. My name is Greg Toussaint. I'm a principal at Ed Geddon & Company, a strategy consultancy specialized in payments, and I have the pleasure this morning to be your chairman. This morning, we'll talk about IoT. Internet of Things, connected objects. We have a packed morning, so hopefully we'll have some interesting discussions, insights, and openings on the development of the IoT ecosystem. So let's have a look at our speakers this morning. If it's always good to get on a good start. Just to make sure that the machine is awake. Do you mind checking if it's... Oh, perfect, sorry. Good. So everyone is awake, the machine and me included. So let's have a look. I'll start this morning by doing a quick intro on the morning, on the IoT, what has come. And the topic of today's discussion is the Internet of Things, how we have come from pilots, buzz, announcements to actual reality, commercial rollouts, and significant launch. Then Michelle Evans at Euromonitor will talk about the IoT at home and how it's developing. It will be followed by Håkan Salan at Fidesmo, who will talk about contactless services and other insights like smart transportation. This will be followed by Michael Orlando at FitPay, who will talk about the Internet of Payments and how connected objects can become a platform for commerce. The next presentation will be delivered by Colin Mallet at Trusted Renewables. He will talk about IoT, blockchain, and solar panel. When I heard all the buzzwords at the same time, I was like, wow, that will be interesting. But I know that the presentation will be compelling. So looking forward to this one, and also to the next one by Carlos Belsue at Amilion Geneva. We'll talk about a bracelet, a wearable for the luxury sector. And this will be followed after by a panel discussion. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask questions. Always better to have an interesting discussion. So, Internet of Things. I'm not sure if this will happen in the coming years, if your toaster will try to become a blender or the other way around. But let's first ask a question. We talk about IoT. We have a lot of discussion, a lot of articles. Who among you have one connected device at home? Can you put your hands up? Who has two? Ooh, less. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. What do you have to make your home so connected?
I have power sensors, I have humidity sensors, temperature sensors, light sensors, TVs, everything. That's maybe the way home will be in the coming years. And it's definitely, if we have a look, this is an infographic that we created for TRUSTECH. It's from last year, but it's still highly relevant in the big numbers that we can see. On the top left corner, we can see that there is 5 billion IoT devices as of last year. So this includes everything related to wearables, smart home, smart transportation. Relevant to say that during this morning, we'll mainly focus on consumer IoT. There is also another part related to industrial IoT, which we could also discuss, but for the sake of being relevant, we focus on consumer IoT this morning. And you can see that actually, by 2020, we'll have around 8 to 10 IoT devices. So this gentleman here is ahead of the curve, definitely. One thing which is always interesting when you talk about IoT is what is a consumer appetite? And we'll come back to that in a few seconds. Is there really a real interest from consumers?
you can have different types of survey. One that I really like in particular is one that was done in the UK, whereby some consumers were given some connected devices, tried it for a couple of months, and because they had it in their hands, they could see the value of it, they could see the interest from using connected devices, the benefits that can bring, be it a sensor for light, for your security camera, or for different appliances. 83% said that they would be interesting to use it, and if it has also payments on top of it, it would facilitate commerce, to develop a frictionless commerce. The other stat at the bottom right is some of the professionals like you and I, a survey that we conduct every year at Gaddon, that said that almost 3 out of 4 professionals indicated that they would see the IoT develop significantly in the coming years. We'll talk about that also in the roundtable. But if we have a look at what happened in the past 12, 18 months, I would pinpoint to highlight 6 key trends. The first one we've seen with the numbers, we have a huge number of IoT devices that are being developed out there, a lot of innovations, a lot of use. That being said, we still have a fragmented ecosystem. Your smart camera is not connected to your smart sensors, is maybe not connected to your smart fridge or your smart car. And the fragmentation of the ecosystem is still a challenge to resolve. That being said, when we talk about connected devices, the key thing that we can leverage compared to a normal device is the breadth of data that we can use. Data will bring value, and depending on how players can leverage this data, they can have a lot of insights and a lot of services as well. I know that with Fidesmo and FitPay, we'll talk about the significance of payments. Any kind of connected object that has the possibility to have a payment capability becomes, in a way, a connected object on a platform for commerce. And we'll talk later on also about consumers' interest. There's a lot out there. I'm not sure we saw with the consumer the blender versus the toaster. Is there a consumer interest, and does it actually solve a pain point or bring value? I will just highlight, just to give a bit of flavor at the beginning of this track, about some of the launches, developments this year in terms of urban architecture. There was an initiative in Spain, in the Palais Islands. Also, Bill Gates invested a few $1 million in a smart city in Arizona, just to highlight that some of the announcements or pilots that we had actually become a reality in the past few months. Another example in the domain of sport, we have Manchester City, one of the leading clubs in Europe that has partnered with Tapit to have a cashless solution in the stadium. The objective is for them to have a frictionless, very smooth customer experience with different types of services, a bit similar to the Disney Magic Band, if you're familiar with it. And last, we'll talk about it in the new use cases. BBVA has launched a pilot for their own employees, whereby you have the facial recognition. That is also the case in China to facilitate the payment. So you can smile when you're in front of the camera or not. As long as you're recognized, you can pay and have your lunch. So to conclude this introduction, will we get there? Will it be all connected objects that will let us know what we need to bring and what we need to buy? I think it's more likely that we'll have a service whereby all food will be delivered at home. But it's another example of different use cases and the development that we have in the industry. So this was just a quick intro to give you a bit of the flavor that we'll have this morning. I would like now to invite Michel Evans, who is head of digital customer research at Euromonitor. she will deliver a compelling presentation about how IoT will transform commerce in the home by 2040. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Do we have the? Oh, there we go. Okay. So this presentation is going to look at the Internet of Things and how it will transform commerce in the home by 2040. So we're trying to push things out a little bit. So ubiquitous connectivity has given way to an intelligent interaction between humans and things. The International Telecommunications Union defines the Internet of Things as the concept of physical devices incorporating software, sensors, and network connectivity to enable those devices to collect data. So put more simply, it's about the interaction between human and things to create a new value, and knowledge. As we think about the smart home, it has been talked about for a number of years, but thus far has not lived up to all of its hype. We're seeing the divergence, or the convergence, of three different factors. So you have widespread connectivity. You also have consumer appliance manufacturers now incorporating connectivity across all their lines of products at all price points. And then you're also seeing more compelling use cases among consumers. So I offer a couple data points here from Euromonitor to put that into perspective. So 65%, that's the number of households expected to have access to broadband connectivity by 2030. You can see that's up from about half the population being connected today. And then 200 million, that refers to the number of speakers. We call them wireless speakers. That's going to encompass things like Google Home and Amazon's Alexa that we expect to be sold by 2023. So that's in terms of number of units, and that doubles what we saw being sold last year. When we think about the home in 2040 and how it might look, there's going to be certain kind of drivers and different trends that are really going to propel and shape this story. So I point out just a few of them here. In terms of driver, population change, technology, and changing consumer values are going to be key ones. And I just highlighted some big trends here. It doesn't mean that this is an all-encompassing list, but when you think about the different trends that are driven by these drivers, population change, when you think about urbanization comes to mind. So consumers are definitely shifting from rural to urban environments. We know that consumers are living longer. When you think about technology, consumers expect anything and everything at their fingertips, and they're also living their life more on demand. And then the last one is changing consumer values, so consumers being willing to pay money to buy back time. And then also the healthy living movement. We're going to talk about a couple of these in a little bit more depth. So an automated home appeals to a consumer's a desire to simplify life. So Euromonitor explored what we call the new consumerism. So what are the values and priorities reshaping consumers today? This desire to simplify life is a key theme in that. So this is some data from our lifestyle survey. It was fielded in the summer of 2017. And what we're looking at here is we asked them some various statements to try to tease out their opinions around status and consumerism. So you can see that about 40% of the connected population says they're willing to spend money to save time. But even more pronounced beyond that is the idea that consumers are looking to simplify life. So you can see that's the top answer with over 60%. In the future, we expect more commerce choices will be aided by machines. So we're just at the start of this shift where commerce, consumption is on that cusp of shifting from being more passive in nature or being more active in nature to being more passive in nature. And the Internet of Things is a major driver of that because of the automation of these purchases. So this is a question that we asked, or we polled industry professionals. It was conducted in February of this year. So we asked them their opinion about different investments in technology, the importance of different technologies. And the key question I wanted to pull out here is thinking about the Internet of Things today and also in the future. What aspects of IoT do you see impacting commerce? So I think the key takeaway here is that it's expected to shift from today and into the future. So when we think about in the next 12 months, you can see the top answer given is to improve customer engagements, whereas if you fast forward it out another 5 years, they see it being to autonomize purchase decisions. So obviously that's probably going to take a little bit more of a runway in order to build towards that, but we see that coming down the pipeline. When we think about passive consumption, there's going to be certain types of purchases that really play well into this, and home care is definitely one of them. When we define home care, it's going to be purchases like laundry detergent, fabric softener, and the like. So what I'm showing you here is some of our data from our home care system, and I'm layering it against our digital consumer index. So on the axes on the side, we show our forecast score for the Digital Consumer Index. Very simply speaking, the higher the score, the better off the market is. And what that index really conceptualizes in a very simplified way is a market's digital connectivity and also its propensity to spend online. And then the other figures are coming from our home care system, and they're looking at purchases a consumer made of these home care purchases using the internet. So the axis on the bottom shows a percentage growth rate, the CAGR moving 5 years out, and then the size of the bubble refers to the absolute value being added. So you can see some promising markets, US, UK, and then China is the huge bubble. So obviously it's not always about growth rate. You can see Saudi Arabia would win in that, but it also comes down to the size of the market. What's their potential to be spending in that? So China is a key story there. So when we think about the home of 2040 and how it might look as a result of the Internet of Things, I wanted to boil it down to some key themes that we think are going to play a big factor when it comes to reshaping this world. So first is convenience. That's the automation of replenishment purchases that will enable consumers to buy back time. As I pointed out, that's certainly a major desire among consumers. And then simplicity. So in order to tap into that desire to simplify life, that's where the automation of different appliances, to be able to control appliances more easily, will play a factor. And then the third is security. Thus far, security is the kind of major reason that consumers are adopting smart homes. You see, or smart home type products, you see things like the connected doorbells and being able to visually see who's at your door to let them in, being some of the key products. So we think security is going to continue to play a role. And then affordability. Consumers, besides, if you look at consumers and why they shop online, the top reasons they give is to save time and to save money. So I don't think there's any consumer out there that doesn't enjoy when they feel like they got a deal. So the affordability, the ability to maybe be able to save money by being able to track through your appliances and to measure usage and potentially cut back. So these are some images I worked with our designer at Euromonitor to sketch out. And so what we were trying to do here is to look at what the home might look like in 2040. So this is the living room. So you have the gentleman, he's watching football in this case. You can see that there's definitely an interactive element there where you can see more information to buy tickets maybe to an upcoming game or merchandise tied to that particular game. You can see he's hungry, so he's getting ready to, he's ordering ingredients for pizza. It's all voice enabled. And then the wife in this case is shopping, so she's using the augmented virtual, or I guess augmented realities to see how a vase she's shopping for might look in her home environment. This next sketch looks at the kitchen of 2040. So here on the left, we have the robot arriving with the ingredients for that pizza the gentleman wanted to make. So we think that drones could play a factor with delivering products to the home in the future. And there could be robotic assistants as well in the home that could provide or serve a variety of different roles. In this case, the robot was there to answer the door, to pick up the ingredients, to bring it into the home. A key feature with the individual standing at the island is this interface. We think there's going to be more interfaces embedded into the home, key places being the kitchen, the bedroom. So you can see in this case what it's displaying is those orders that are being automated, so the family's alerted what is coming their way. And then the second being different settings around the home. So think temperature, water consumption, security, etc. And then the third aspect of this drawing is the woman that is looking into the fridge. Obviously, the fridge is connected. It could alert you in terms of what you're low on. In this case, what we're demonstrating is how it could be embedded into different, your personalized nutritional system. So think about, as a consumer, you might wear a device like a Fitbit device that tracks your steps. Thus far, you're more, if you're trying to track your food intake, a lot of times you're entering that information into maybe a Fitbit app or a Weight Watchers app or something like that. But we think there's obviously more technology coming along where when she's choosing that item out of the fridge, it could tell you if you're making a good or a bad decision. In this case, she's choosing an apple, and that's a very good decision. So they're indicating that that's a solid decision and what kind of intake that will give for the day. And then this third sketch here is the bedroom of the future. So we see the interfaces coming around again. So the mom is getting ready for the day. She has a little son at home, and so this is where the robot comes into play again. So the robot in this instance is serving as a pseudo babysitter, playing with the kid. So they're playing blocks. And one of the things we think with the robot is that families might outright buy the robot, they might rent, they might lease, but we think there's going to be a layer of different services where you almost upgrade or buy certain packages in order to access new functionality within the robot. So what we're showing here, the kid is playing blocks with the robot, but he's saying, hey, Mom, can we upgrade? So if he's, let's say, 3, maybe she could buy the package that's for 4-year-olds if he's not challenged by what he has right then. And then in terms of the mom getting ready, you can see it's an interactive screen or a mirror that she's looking or standing in front of. So you can see the items that she has in her closet. And then what we have on the far right is a hologram brand representative. So we think there's a potential for consumers to welcome in certain brand reps into their home as they're getting ready. So in this case, she's virtually trying on a skirt, and maybe the rep could suggest a blouse to go with that they have in their own collection, or maybe a belt or a certain accessory. And the woman could try that on against the clothes she already has in home. And then in the middle there, it's all about that community that you build around yourself. So there's the social sharing aspect, whatever those networks are 20 years from now. And there's also the ability to just share individually with friends, one-on-one as well. So when we think about these advancements, I want to just talk briefly about the impact or implications for a variety of different players across the ecosystem. So for durable good manufacturers, there's a lot of opportunities coming because of IoT where they can have a more one-to-one direct relationship with a consumer. So think about the services that they could provide in terms of predictive maintenance, remote monitoring of appliances, et cetera, et cetera. For consumer brands and retailers, the biggest change coming is the automation of certain products, certain purchase decisions. So for consumer brands and retailers that are able to get a consumer signed up and buying that item, that's great because you've locked in that consumer for a repeated purchase. But for brands and retailers on the outside looking in, obviously that's going to create a new layer of challenges. It sort of disrupts that traditional funnel that brands and retailers are used to using to entice consumers. You know, it elongates when a consumer might change the brand that they're using. You know, instead of a consumer brand being able to compete with every purchase, a consumer may not consider a different brand for a year or 2 years, et cetera, et cetera. Third-party service providers. There's going to be a variety of different providers, more service-oriented coming into the home. Probably one of the bigger ones in this world are going to be more around data. So think about these worlds or the world that I talked about, especially when you think about the woman in front of the fridge, how it ties into the nutritional profile. Today, to be able to get all of that to work together, you're going to have a lot of partnerships. And what we're talking about in the future is going to require more data and more of those partnerships. And we think there could be more of a world out there where consumers maybe sell their data to a third-party provider, what it is they want to share. And then third-party providers work with companies that would deliver those type of experiences. Because obviously we're having pushback on what data collection's about, especially with GDPR in this region. So there's a lot of shifts going on around that space. And then finally, for consumers, I think the biggest change is saving time and potentially saving money in this world. So just to wrap up, you know, I know whenever I talk about our Commerce 2040 project, you know, the questions I always get is, well, what's the likelihood of all of this coming to be? So in terms of where we're at today, we're shifting into this world of the Internet of everything. So anything and everything being connected, phones, watches, appliances, cars, etc. We're seeing them slowly turn into more things for commerce. So, you know, kind of that first probably product we were using or device we were using for commerce would be computers, mobile phones in the last decade or so. Wearables are starting to pick up some steam. So obviously there's more coming down that pipeline. We think that commerce will become more passive in the future, so it's going to be more about the automation, especially certain categories like home care. And then I talked about this briefly where brand loyalty will be redefined. So it's all about being that brand or the retailer, the company that consumers choose when they decide to lock in to an automated purchase. And then barriers to consumption. I think we're going to talk about this more across the morning, but all of this is not going to happen without overcoming a variety of barriers. Think about one of the most fundamental is the connectivity component. So we're just going to cross next year for the first time where over half of the global population is connected. But if we look out, I think it's to 2030, about 3/4 of the population will be connected. So we still even have a ways to go on that front. And then think about the variety of different platforms that are all competing to be that winning platform. So there's certainly a lot of barriers that are going to hold the speed of adoption. So I thank you for joining me this morning. If you're interested in what commerce might look like in 2040, we do have a related white paper here with this link. The white paper is called Commerce 2040, Revolutionary Tech Will Boost Consumer Engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions for Michelle? Well, I have one. I wouldn't let you go away with such an interesting presentation with us projecting the future. From your perspective, what are the first connected objects to become mainstream at home? Because we talk about 2040, which is more than 20 years from now. What do you think will be the first use cases that we will have at home?
Well, so I think it somewhat depends how we categorize or how we define the connected home, because in some ways our computers are part of that, our phones are part of that. Like I highlighted the speakers. Yeah. that's certainly a product that we're looking at as more that gateway device, where obviously it's not as mobile as a mobile phone would be, or a computer for that matter, that's a device that's really started to take off. Obviously, that's really trying to drive home that point of voice platforms as well. So it's really a key product in that degree. So when you think about that hands-free experience, there are going to be certain use cases when it comes to commerce. It's going to be products or services that when you search it, it doesn't have a laundry list of different things that come back. It's going to have to be, a shorter sort of path to purchase. So I think about an experience like ordering your Uber as you're walking out of your home. Things that I do is when I'm getting ready to go to the airport, I could ask, is my flight delayed? But one time I did try to use it to shop. So I asked for a can of tomatoes in case it accidentally sent me something. It wouldn't be crazy expensive. And just that experience of what it came back with, because you think about the size, the type of tomatoes, it even chose a retailer in Chicago that I've never shopped at before. So, just how they might fulfill that too might not be what you want.
Did you get your can of tomatoes at the end?
I canceled the order because the delivery fee was $5.99. It was like 3 times what the actual product was.
So a good example of how it can improve.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm sure that otherwise we'll be able to have more questions during the roundtable. So thanks, Michelle, and we can thank her for her presentation. I would like now to bring to the floor Håkan Salen, which is a VP Sale at Fidesmo, and we'll talk about contactless services.
Hi guys, good to be here. Last week, I was invited to my daughter's school. She's 7.5. So I was invited over. It was a kind of thing they do where I live. They have a parent day. I don't know if you experienced that. As a parent, you're invited to the kids' school, and everyone can tell the kids what they work with. So there I was with other parents, and the kids were asking us, what were we working with? So there was one guy, he was a carpenter. Another guy was a broker, there was a nurse, there was a medical doctor. Then it was my turn. So the question was, what was I working with? Even my daughter wondered a bit. So I was trying there to explain to this 7-year-old, I'm working for a company called Fidesmo. We're building a platform. We're connecting different kind of services to thingies. This is when my daughter cuts me off, saying, Daddy, shut up. And she tells her kids' friends, my dad works with computers, and he makes sure they hook up to thingies. Very simple. So before going any further in this, I'm Håkan Salen. I come from a company called Fidesmo. Fides stands for trust, Mo for mobility. So that's what it's all about. Trusted mobility, isn't it? To talk about IoT, we all have different views on IoT. The main thing and general thing is like connected things with internet. And that's what it's all about for us too. We are building a unifying IoT platform, hooking our customers' services to things out in the real world over our platform. So, when talking to our customers and partners, we see a couple of trends. And we see payments are going contactless. This is a clear trend. This is pushed from the banks, the schemes, and the payment providers. This is for security and to bring speed to the payment transactions. We also see a clear trend in old systems upgrading their infrastructure, and with the technical and old legacies they have, they now see that these needs to be upgraded. And one device, many devices, you cannot have one integration per device out there. It needs to be something unifying here. That's a clear trend. And with that also comes the simplification of the value chain. partners want to have one solution to hook many, many things into this. And we see this clearly when we talk to our payment scheme. We have a single token request ID for all devices hooking into the Fidesmo platform, which makes it very simple for the payment scheme. We also see an impact coming from the PSD2 legislation. I think, Greg, you said there was a speak in the adjoining conference room here about this. So you guys interested in that? You missed that because I will just briefly mention it. We see an impact on this, and this is coming very clear to many companies that they need to adopt to this. The closed loop payments and integrity issues around the users in this kind of systems, the loyalty schemes and such, are taking effect by this. So this is clear, and we see this every day when we talk to our partners. All right, so now we're coming to the essence of what we do. This is what we call the spider web. All right. So on the left-hand side, we have different kind of services. On the right-hand side, you see different kind of devices. And in between, we have the Fidesmo platform. So we're piping keys and credentials from one side to the another in a trusted and secure way. We've built our own service for this in a very state-of-the-art security facility, fulfilling all requirements from the payment schemes. To go through different some of the services on the left-hand side here, I mean, the public transport system. We are currently involved in a very interesting project called the Seamless Travel, meaning one device could carry many different credentials and many different keys to, let's say, public transport. You jump on a bus, gets off the bus a couple of stops later, and you unlock your rental car with the same carrier as you used on the bus. And when you park the rental car, you can open and unlock a bike coming with that. So this is a project we're involved in. And this is, I mean, when I talk to politicians up in the Nordics, I tell them to be environmental friendly, it needs to be easy to be friendly. It needs to be seamless, otherwise people won't bother. We're involved in a couple of access company integrations out there. And this is also about distributing keys to residents and real estate and offices in a very secure way, because if those get lost, people might break into your house. We're also adding another vertical to the ecosystem, and that's the payments, because we also know that payments is important and crucial. It's an ingredient feature. This is what people are asking for. To carry your payment functionalities on something by your fingertips or on your wrist. This is something a lot of people are asking for. Then when it comes to the devices on the right-hand side, I mean, we have watches. You'll see that on the next slide. We have a couple of watch brands already with us using our turnkey solution. And with a turnkey solution, we mean a module, an antenna with a chip from, in this case, NXP, fully certified in the MasterCard environment. So we can place a token from the MDES tokenization platform on these watches. And actually, on the watch I'm currently carrying, in the wristband, I have this passive chip. So this can work as a payment carrier. And we build this on passive devices, passive chips and devices. We have clothes, we have jewelries, rings, and other jewelries. But last but not least, cards. Do you know that there are 42 billion cards out there in the world? That's quite a lot. And I would be stupid if I would claim those cards will be gone very soon. This will take it some time. But what will happen, and a very clear signal we get from different banks, is the fact that the banks want to add functionalities to these cards. They want to use them for more than payment and bookmarks. They want to use them for every kind of service, entering your gym, entering your premises. And this is something, with putting Fidesmo on these cards, it opens up for a variety of features and services. And the banks also know that if there's one card I mean, the wallet gets thicker and thicker, and people tend to take cards out. But if the card has multiple features, that card will stay longer. And that's very clear. I read somewhere that on average in the US, a wallet contains 11 cards. In Europe, I think it was 6 or 7 or something like that. Quite a few. All right, so here, I listed a couple of devices with Fidesmo on. And I mean, to us, it actually doesn't matter what it is. Different form factors. Is a chip and antenna certified and with our keys on. And when people ask me, they say to me, Håkan, do you see a threat from mobile phones? And I said, no. Why should I? That's just another device to us and another form factor. So now we're talking to smartphone manufacturers about putting the Fidesmo keys on the secure element of the watches, of the smartphones. And like I already mentioned, a couple of watches we have there, all very nice looking. Clothes, rings, jewelry. But then we might wonder, what's after this then? And Michelle, you already mentioned it. I mean, what comes 2040, wasn't it? I mean, we all talk about security. I mean, all those things. The toaster turning into a blender, bad. I mean, probably something wrong with the firmware uploaded. Should have a secure element maybe on it. So we see, I mean, it needs some kind of unifying platform for keeping the security on a decent standard in these kind of systems. And we could see that coming along, and we're getting attentions for it. And I mean, clearly there are cameras, security cameras, home alarms, all those things. They need to have a good level of security, and that cannot be left without that very good managed. So that's how we see the future. So if you have any, I'm going to hang around after the sessions here today. If you want to have some words with me or my CTO that I brought with me, you'll feel free to approach us, and it's great being here.
Perfect. Thanks, Håkan. Any questions for Håkan?
Are you using your watch for something, or just you already have the chip on it?
Yeah, I have the chip.
Are you using it for payments, or are you?
Well, very soon. I mean, I would be lying if I say I could go out there and buy something. But we're starting the pilot in 2-3 weeks' time now. We're putting a token onto it. So we're almost done with the integration to the MDES platform.
Any other question? Okay, I have one for you. Yeah. So in a way, Fidesmo is a hub to bring convenience. Where do you find the most promising use cases? Is it in transport, in access, in payments?
I think the most promising part is when we hook them together. That's where the power comes from. The fact that you're using things in many places and on many different occasions. Mm-hmm. That's the power in it.
And from the pilots or the satisfaction that you may have from users, what was the 2 key 3 learnings that you could share with us?
I mean, just the fact that people, if I have a pair of sunglasses or a nice watch I like, I mean, let me use those to do whatever I want. I mean, we see this in a very agnostic view, saying leave it up to make it customer-centric. I think that's the thing, customer-centric. Leave it to the customer to decide and make it sure it's secured.
Okay, 2 last questions.
How do you verify that the key holder is the rightful person to hold the key?
In what way? When?
For instance, in a watch.
Yeah.
How do you know that you rented the car? How do you know that you rented the car rather than somebody who nicked the watch?
Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same. Let's say, I mean, the comparison with a watch and a credit card is good. So it still takes an ID from the rental company. They need to check your ID, your driver license or something like that. If you rent a car with it, you unlock it. But if it's unlocking a car, yeah, then it's then it could be, you need to block it. You need to call the support saying, like, my watch has gone missing. So it's the same as if you lose your key card.
Are the manufacturers willing to share data?
I mean, the only thing we do, they don't really need to share any data. We pipe data from their backend to a thingy once. That's what we do. And we make sure that ends up there safely and secured. So they're not sharing data. Then it's up to them. They take care of their payment transaction, the public transport data and stuff. We don't deal with that.
Thanks, Håkan. I look forward to using my watch or the devices to connect and use on a regular basis. So join me in thanking Håkan for his presentation. And we actually have like a good transition. Håkan talk about payments, and now we can have Michael Orlando, who is CEO and co-founder at FitPay, will talk about the Internet of Payments. Michael, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Michael Orlando. I'm the president and co-founder of FitPay. So Håkan did a really good introduction into payments onto devices. Our company I founded about 4 years ago, that whole premise about bringing payments to devices. And so we've built a platform and offer products and services that help facilitate digital commerce. And when we think about digital commerce, it's really about the ecosystem providers. So whether they be consumers, merchants, banks, networks, how do we enable those systems and those service providers to create a system and an environment where consumers and users can transact in a way that is frictionless, secure, and most importantly, personalized. How they want to interact with a merchant, whether it be person-to-person, face-to-face, at retail, or digitally over e-commerce or other means, even passive, as Michelle mentioned. And so our platform is built with that philosophy in mind in order to make those digital transactions happen. And so this quote I saw about a year ago, actually, but I think it becomes even more relevant as we look forward into IoT and how payments will be available in IoT. And it's really about table stakes. And having that feature and that capability in all devices is going to be required in order for consumers to want to have those devices and be able to utilize and see utility in each one of those devices. And it might not get you a seat at the table here in Monte Carlo, but it's going to be necessary in order for you to have a viable product in the future. And so we really think about now transitioning from the Internet of Things to where it's the Internet of Payments, where all of these connected devices have payment capabilities inherent to them, and the ability for the consumer to control who has their credential, who they share their credential with, and the ability then to revoke that credential and share it amongst many devices. And it's really driven then by the massive growth that we see in digital payments. Today, we're sitting at about $1 trillion in contactless payments, and that's device to retail. But the digital commerce world is growing even more to over $5 trillion in the next 4 years. And that's driven in two ways. One, the number of devices that'll have commerce capabilities as part of their feature set. And two, consumer adoption. Consumers becoming aware and understanding the utility of payments on their devices and finding access points to utilize payments on those devices. We first saw this come in mobile payments. Apple Pay rolled out a little over 4 years ago, and it really gave us the first insight into where a mobile wallet can be effective. There were mobile wallets before that, but there was a lot of questions in the marketplace about whether or not they would be successful. And Apple really set the stage. And it's actually funny. We started our company on September 1st, 2014, thinking that we could change the world in which payments happened on devices. Turns out 8 days later, Apple announced Apple Pay, and we thought we were dead. But in reality, what that did was really lay the groundwork to push the ecosystem in a very fast way to create a mechanism for not only the payment networks to adopt to a system of how contactless and digital payments would be available to consumers and on devices, but also where acceptance would occur, and because over half the population has an Apple device today, or an Apple phone, it created an awareness amongst consumers in which they would understand what it meant to have a payment connected to something other than a card. And so we're starting to see this adoption trend take effect. Although I will say it's still pretty modest in terms of the number of users that are doing it, and secondly, the number of users that continue to use it on a weekly basis. And I think where we're going to start to see that trend start to grow, and I'll talk about these challenges in a little bit, is really where the capabilities of devices and acceptance becomes more ubiquitous. So I'd like to share a story about my own personal experience to kind of bring home where it can kind of change the way that we think about payments in terms of a device being connected and what that means without having any other services available to you. So my wife and I were on vacation back in the spring, and we left our beach chairs, and all I had with me was my flip-flops, my swim trunks, and my Garmin watch. And we ran into this vendor on the beach and selling a lot of cool trinkets and what have you. And within his display, we found, not the dog, that's our little puppy. Someone once told me you can't go wrong with a puppy in a presentation, so here's my puppy. So the collar and leash. So we wanted to bring Darla, our puppy, home a souvenir, and found this cool tropical collar and leash for her. Problem was, I had no cash, no wallet, no mobile phone, because I left everything back at our chair. But I did have my Garmin watch. And on it, I had Garmin Pay. And what that was a tokenized credential, my credit card from Capital One, stored on my watch. Turns out this beach vendor had a Square terminal that accepted contactless payments. Bought the collar, leash, $40 later. We're walking back to our chair with a new souvenir for our puppy. Now, who wins here? First and foremost, this beach merchant. Right? I would have never bought that, because I wouldn't have walked the half a mile back to my chair to get my wallet and come back. I would have never bought it. So it was an impulse purchase that occurred because I was ability to pay with my watch. My credit card company got the transaction, the network got the transaction, and Garmin created an affinity to its user and that merchant and the network and the card issuer because that transaction was facilitated on their device. And of course, Darla. She got her lovely collar and leash. So we really see the Internet of Things and the Internet of Payments parallel a market evolution similar to the mobile handset. So if you think about back 20 years ago, we had mobile phones. At the time, we thought they were cool devices. Everybody wanted to have one. The smaller it got, the better you thought it was. But they were really a single-purpose device that when you think about it, all it did was make a phone call, and you could potentially text, but the texting was lots of digits on your phone and lots of errors and what have you. Then, in the mid-2000s, Apple introduced the iPhone, the first smartphone, and that really changed the way that we thought about these connected devices, because now I had a device that was multi-purpose. It had an app ecosystem that allowed me to do all kinds of different things other than make phone calls. And it allowed me to connect to not only the phone world, right, for communication, but to websites, other providers through apps, and other commerce locations through things like Uber, hotel apps, my airline application, and those types of things. And it also had an interface that was very similar to my computer, which made it easy for me to use and adopt. What we're seeing now is you've got IoT, which similar to where we had the single device for a single use, now we have a single device for multiple uses. Now you've got many devices with many uses that are all interconnected. And that's really what the Internet of Things is, and that's the same market evolution that's happening today. And really what that's going to do is move us from a device central use case where my device was the central point or the focal point of how I connected to different things, to a feature-centric world, where I want to take features with me, like payments, and bring those to different devices that I interact with. And so I see those different features as really the things that are important to me, separated from the devices that are important to me, but I want to bring those features with me in a very seamless and frictionless way to the different devices that I interact with. And we saw that a lot with the way during Michelle's presentation in the connected home, where the different devices in my home understood who I was, understood what I wanted to buy, and in a lot of ways predicted and automated the way I did things throughout my home and throughout my experience. And so as we move towards this Internet of Payments, it's really going to change the way that payments occur. And I'll have multiple devices that I interact with in every day, whether it be my car, my refrigerator, my ring, my key fob, my phone, different ways in which I connect with commerce, and commerce connects with me through devices. But we're not without challenges. And there's still a number of challenges that we face here to kind of help drive this adoption and the world to be very connected and very commerce-oriented. And the first is a very, very complicated ecosystem. Both ourselves, Fidesmo, we strive to kind of bring simplicity to an ecosystem that inherently isn't there. And in some ways, I don't know whether they want to be simplified. I think in some ways the ecosystem wants to add layers of complexity to it. But you do have all these different bodies in here that all have decisioning power and influence in which commerce can occur on a device and really authenticate and give efficacy to the way the devices occur. And whether it's the standard bodies, the software providers, or the folks, the service providers, the networks that own those credentials, each one has a voice in the way that a payment credential can reside and be authenticated on a device. And once that happens, now you've got the actual delivery of those devices down to whether it be a smartwatch, my vehicle, or my refrigerator. And whether it be a token service provider, which in our case is the networks that create the tokens. Could also be a transport system that owns and creates those tokens. A token requester, which is the role we play at FitPay. Or the token service manager, which is also a role we play in driving that token down to the device. Each one of these players has to not only provide services to, but the device manufacturer themselves needs to have a relationship with or some sort of connectivity point in order to provide their consumer that. And again, we're ourselves, Fidesmo, other companies are out there trying to bring a single point of contact and a single point of interface to make this much more simpler. Ubiquity of acceptance. So I mentioned when I talked about the mobile wallet experience earlier that we're still seeing a drag in terms of acceptance, but we're starting to see that shift change, where we've got over 86 million contactless terminals out there in the next 4 years. In countries like Australia, where you have 94% of all retail transactions are contactless today. 80% of U.S. terminals will be contactless in the U.S. By the end of this year, or by the end of last year. So what you're seeing now is the ability and the access points for consumers to actually transact contactlessly and digitally to be available to them. And lastly, security. So I think we're going to talk about this more inside the panel. But security on devices is paramount. Some of the questions came up at the end of the last one, like how do you authenticate the user, and how do you do that? And so for security, for the ability for devices to transact seamlessly, security needs to be passed seamlessly along, and that authentication shared between devices. And I think we're going to get to a world where my refrigerator knows who I am based on the proximity I am to different devices in my home and the authentication that I provided, potentially my most secure device. So because I log into my phone with my face or with my fingerprint, my refrigerator recognizes that's my phone and it's on my body and then authenticates me. We're not there yet, but I think that's where we start to see this kind of connected and collaborative authentication occur, and where payments and other types of authenticated transactions will really start to take wind. And that's when we'll see this transformative payment experience happen. when all of these things, both the ecosystem challenges smooth out, the ubiquity of acceptance is there, and the security of authentication becomes something that's more natural and intuitive, we'll see this transformative payment experience happen, and we really will get to where the table stakes of payments are available to all devices. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Michael. Any questions for Michael? And we can, yes, we can thank him for his compelling presentation. I have a first question for you. With Michel, with Håkan, we talk about 2040, we talk about integration. From your perspective, is the market really ready for Internet of Payments?
I think so. I think the big driver is that the one thing holding it back more than anything is kind of my very end of the presentation where I talked about security, and it's the fragmented nature of security. I think there's this rush to devices to come out from different manufacturers without a standards, and you know, standards are good and standards can be bad, but in terms of security and how we want to connect these devices, I think the standards in terms of security is really paramount. So, you know, we have the FIDO Alliance and other agencies out there and other alliances that are out there to help bring security and validity and ubiquity to security, but I think security is the big gap right now.
I agree, and we'll come back to it. And there's also a separate track on security for IoT because it's such an important topic. So let's have a look at the future, Michael, and let us know what can we expect from FitPay in the coming months or coming years. Is it watch, smart transportation, smart home? What are your pipelines and the thing that you can tell us you're working on?
Yeah. So we're really about devices and connecting different devices. And so, you know, we spend a lot of time with physical devices, so watch, rings, those types of things. And really what we want to do is then begin to share those credentials across different use cases. So the ability to create one credential for my Garmin watch, share that with other devices like my cell phone or my laptop, and then conduct transactions over e-commerce and other ways. So a consumer control token that I present and revoke and authenticate based on where I want that token to be and who I want my payment credential to be. And that's kind of the next phase of our platform is consumer control around credential management.
And that would be a key aspect indeed. Well, thanks, Michael. We can thank him for his very insightful presentation. I would like to ask Colin Mallet to come to the floor. He's CEO and ICT for Internet of Things and Smart Energy at Trusted Renewables. He will have a very interesting use case talking about solar panels, IoT, and blockchain. And the floor is yours, Colin.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been coming here for many years when 3GSM was here, and now I've moved over to be an eco-warrior. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit, just an introduction, then a bit about IoT and smart energy. Our favourite topic, security, how we link this to smart blockchains, and then my invention, which is the smart solar panel, and let's see how we go. So, Trusted Renewables, I call it a private spin-out from BT Laboratories. Myself and my colleagues have worked in BT for a long time, and you'll see some of the areas that we've worked in and had a lot of fun working in that. We're experienced R&D program managers, we're experienced engineers. We're experienced engineers, and we've got much experience of working in collaborative partnerships. And this has translated through to the 15 years since I left BT and had a lot of fun. A word from our sponsors. One of the reasons why we've had a lot of fun in the UK, we have an organisation called Innovate UK, and they have competitions for funding, and you'll see some of the competitions that we've done, including preventing fraud in mobile commerce, and we have a 5G mobile expert in our team as well. And we have a partner in Australia who has licensed our IPRs, and they're developing something in a very interesting way in Australia. So what have we invented? Well, we've invented the smart solar panel. We've done examples that have a Multos operating system, and I have granted patents, not patent applications, but they're now granted in, I think, about 32 countries. And we're looking for people to take licenses. So this was the idea. It was a crazy idea. I was working on converged services, and basically I said, I'm going to do something really stupid. I'm going to put a smart card chip into each panel, and this is the result. You've got a thing which we didn't know about until a few weeks ago called the Trusted Hardware Blockchain Oracle. We've got a system on a chip because the chips are nice and powerful, and I'm going to mention what a solar garden is. Wirepass are a great friend of ours. They are ex-Nokia people that do a very interesting IoT connectivity solution. And what about solar gardens? Well, this is the idea that you have solar panels on an apartment or a community building, and you can actually buy and trade the rights to these solar gardens on an individual panel basis because it's got our favorite topic, which is a smart card chip in it. And this means that you can support this with digital leases underpinned by smart contracts, and maybe even have a futures market. But this is an overlay. This means a chip goes into each panel, but it's an overlay on what exists at the moment. So let's have a look a little bit about IoT. So everybody's talking about peer-to-peer energy trading using smart contract. Come on, guys, what's the reality? Well, it's all about smart energy IoT ecosystems. I mean, smart energy is going to be one of the most important ecosystems for IoT. You know, the IoT, it's driving new business models. Electricity grid becomes an energy sharing entity. Prosumers upload and download energy. Everybody's involved in clean growth with your smart kitchen. And social media, we add that to persuade people to do stuff. And then you have this two-sided business model. You can see that this involves a mediation platform. And then talking to the guys in this, we say, well, hang on a minute. When you add blockchains to this, maybe it's going to be a three-sided business model. And of course it is, because you've heard about the trusted service manager, the TSM, which people like Gemalto are pushing. Well, we call that generically the validation broker. And so the validation broker comes just like the mediation platform, and it's going to happen in energy. It may not happen yet, but let's see. So the new digital economy. Well, the smart grid is going to be a seamless integration of everything here. You're going to have distributed energy resources. You're going to have micro-generation and energy storage. And I'm pleased to say we will need a completely new approach to billing and payment. It'll be new. It'll be new. It'll be exciting. One of the things you'll have in it is going to be behind-the-meter energy storage. So what do we mean by this? Well, here's the solar panels, and you've got the battery, and you've got the local energy storage. It may well be Tesla, but then on the other hand, I think he wants to go to Mars now, doesn't he? But whatever it'll be, there will be batteries in your local property. You know, how are you going to deal with panels on a shared roof? What about the inverter power monitoring? Because that's not secure. And how are you going to certify that the power from the grid is from renewables? Well, the other question is, how do you make this trusted? And that's why we founded Trusted Renewables, to try and address some of this. Just to look at the generating and storing renewable energy, this is energy storage in my house. You'll see in July, it's doing pretty well. We're putting a lot of solar into the grid. You'll notice the privacy bit. Trust and privacy is always important, because you can see we cook on electricity when we have our evening meal, and you can also see when my daughter or my wife makes me a cup of tea in the morning. That's in November, still putting a little bit to the battery, but this is the future it's going to get, with renewable energy stored actually in a home. So let's look at the energy, our favourite topic. So smart card chips and operating system make the ideal IoT hardware trust anchor. And we've all looked at trust anchors. We know about the cryptographic root of trust. This was one of the reasons why I thought putting it into a solar panel seemed to be a good idea. What's really interesting is when you add that to artificial intelligence, and you look at companies like Darktrace, who are analysing the headers. They don't bother to decrypt the packets, but they analyse the headers and ask questions about why you're having your data sent to a server in North Korea. So, smart card chips then. What about cheating customers? Yeah, they exist. And obviously the smart card industry has done a lot to cut down on the cheating customers. And they exist all over the place. And they're things that we all know about, although none of us really say anything about it. So, important security issues. Data security, key management, resist all the major threats, and above all, the in-life software updates. We all know about Microsoft's Patch Tuesday. And there's an organization started called the Internet of Things Security Foundation, and one of our partners is a company called themselves Cerberus Laboratories, and surprise, surprise, they come out of, they have ST Microelectronics people within them. Multos. Multos has been great. I've known about Multos for over 20 years, almost as long as it's been around. What I like about Multos is it's a real, genuine multi-application service. It's exactly what's needed. You've heard some of the other partners talking about multi-applications, and it's ideally suited for the Internet of Things for energy. And in our case, our use case is we've used it as the IoT trust anchor. We protect the solar panels, and that's what we've done with it. So, blockchains, right, the biggest change to financial services in the 16th century. They've existed before. They were called tally sticks, and now they're called blockchains. So what do they consist of? A historical record of transactions. It's like a database. Each block contains the content and header, and essentially the hash is like a digital fingerprint. And of course, the one that excites me is the distributed blockchain ledger. I was looking at an IoT security project we were working on, and one of the things that we were worried about was actually you want to have a database which is immutable, consisting of a black list, a white list, and a grey list of devices. Because if you've got those listed, then you know whether it's a valid device. And then along came the distributed ledger, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a great solution because the records are immutable, and it's hard to change the records. So another organisation which I've been spending time with a couple of weeks ago in the European Utility Week is the Energy Web Foundation. They're putting together an energy trading peer-to-peer platform using Ethereum, and they've got a public test network called Turbalaba, and Turbalaba is a metro station in Chile. They always name their projects after metro stations, and they're looking at putting a light client on a secure IoT device, and we want an extremely light client because then we could fit it on one of these Multos system-on-a-chip devices. Anyway, so they're expecting to create their Genesis block in 2019. And let's also look at what they're looking at, which is called smart contracts. Smart contracts get very exciting because we're talking about trackable and irreversible transactions. US Senate said, yeah, they're okay because it's all to do with policy engines, it's all to do with things. So, in other words, it's a smart contract. It reduces the third party, and what it does do is it means that you can have trading automatically using blockchains, but it's going to be using well understood existing precedents. And the Energy Web Foundation are looking at using it. A couple of interesting things they are adding is the idea of secret transactions, but still have transparency for authorized parties. And in the telecoms industry, we used to call that lawful intercept. So it means that a regulator can check to see whether people are cheating. Energy Web Foundation are also doing a thing called the Origin. And what this is an idea where you can prove, using renewable energy green attributes, you can actually prove that you've got energy certificates linked to smart contracts, which prove that you've got a testable source of renewable energy, which can be turned into tokens. Now this gets very interesting, because the smart contract can only be unlocked if you have a thing called a blockchain oracle, and it was about a month ago I heard of this. But hang on a minute, what is a blockchain oracle? It's a smart card. It's a smart card chip. We've been using them for years. We love them. We love them at this conference. We know what they are. They're trusted. So let's see what we can use them for. So, as I say, the crazy idea I came up with 10 years ago was before that we were working on fixed to mobile converged services. the idea was to put a smart card chip into a solar panel. And what I didn't know was that actually this is a trusted hardware blockchain oracle. And it means that you can prove and produce crypto tokens from the smart solar panels, and you can put those into a digital e-wallet. And I would like to have them put into an e-wallet on a ring, so you can jump on a bus, and the tokens that you've bought into your solar garden, you're getting credits which go into your token, which can be put onto a ring, so that when you jump on the transport, you don't pay, because you've got your credits from your solar panels. The embedded processor can host a light client. There's still a lot of work about really light clients, but I'm sure this is going to happen. So, embed secure intelligence into a solar panel. Secure modules based on smart card and wireless chips. Security functions include location changes. And by the way, oh yes, and also the battery management. And I should explain that we saw the thing about the smartphone, which was invented about 10 years ago. Well, I was actively, with our team, we were looking at converged services. And even before the iPhone came out, we knew what it was going to be. And so I wrote the block diagram of what it was and put this all in the patent for the solar panel. So if you look up this patent, you'll find that it actually looks like an iPhone embedded in a solar panel. This is the prototypes. We have a strategic relationship with a custom solar panel manufacturer in Wales who'll make panels for us. And they made this panel, and I think there might be one on display on the Maltos stand. And this is what the actual unit looks like. You see we've got a UICC chip and an IoT trust anchor in there. That's in a little bit more detail. We've got the Maltos chip is actually acting as a co-processor to a Wi-Fi chip, but that was just what the university guys did as part of our project. This is a picture of the prototype in a 3D casing. And this was last year on the Gemalto stand of the 2017 European Utility Week. So I have had an excellent relationship with the smart card industry for a long time. And last year we won this award, which was the SMS award for the solar gardens. And so let's just draw some conclusions. Well, what we've come up with, something a bit crazy, because I like to do crazy things. Smart card panels form part of a smart energy IoT ecosystem. The panels become a trusted hardware blockchain oracle. There may well be other IoT devices which will form the same function. It means that we can issue certificates from Energy Web Foundation, and these certificates could be valuable. You know, and then you've got the solar gardens, which supports the peer-to-peer trading with digital leases, which means that you could trade the rights to get these certificates. So we've got trust, security, and privacy. Our favourite topic's important. So I'd like to say we have got some exciting times ahead of us, haven't we? Thank you.
So, thank you, Colin. Any questions for Colin?
Hi, thank you for presentation. My name is Hossein. Concerning the blockchain, which you are emphasized too much on it, I've read an article about the quantum computers who are going soon, developing very fast, to attack the keys, which is which is producing by the blockchain and using in the blockchain PKI infrastructure. Is it really any threat about that, or no?
I think QC is a threat, because effectively, if anybody doesn't know, what it means is that the quantum computing has got so much compute power with these, what are they called, the qubits, that they can actually go and do the processing to guess what the PKI is. And so, but on the other hand, we've got a lovely tool which is called PGP, which stands for pretty good privacy, where you set up a session and you exchange a session key using symmetric key session, where the setup involves sending you're sharing your secret. And so I think it is going to be a problem. It's probably not going to be a problem I'm going to be worried about, but it's one that we need to be aware of, because I think we've got some tools in the toolkit, including the hardware security module, the HSM, which is in the network. And I think we'll have a move more towards symmetric keys, and maybe the blockchain will change. So, yeah, I think that's a very interesting question.
Thank you.
We have another question.
I got a question concerning your remarks with blockchain and smart cards. Do you know whether any smart card has already the same elliptic curve implemented like it's running on most blockchains, especially the Ethereum one? Number one, okay. Okay, I'll leave it for this.
I think the answer is no. But we've got our Australian partners, Solara, they've got some very interesting ideas about doing this. And I think, yeah, and also an algorithm can be changed. I mean, that's the nice thing about an algorithm. Then maybe if we need a new algorithm, including solving this problem with quantum computing, then that's how things are going to be emerge. But it's not going to be a revolutionary change. It's just going to be going from SHA-1 to SHA-256, isn't it?
Okay. Last question from me. So we have smart energy in a way is one of the big challenge in the coming years, and we have here an ingenious use of IoT, blockchain. In which countries are you going to develop and go live in the coming years?
I think it's going to be the guys in Australia. Well, the guys in Australia, but I also think it's going to be Eastern Europe, because the best computer scientists. I put down a guy as a co-inventor of this because he's an expert on end-to-end trust, and he was a Polish guy working in the UK. He's now gone off to be a professor back in Poland, and I'm going to visit him next week. And so I think that, first of all, it's going to be places like Australia. I think there is going to be stuff going on in France because Engie are quite interested in this as well. So I think we may well see take-up pretty quick. Okay. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to trying it at home and
yes,
see if it actually works, because there's no better use of IoT, blockchain, or other technology if it can be actually in proper use and used on a daily basis. Colin, thanks for your a very interesting speech. And I would like now to invite Carlos Belsué, who is CEO at Armilian Genève, and who will talk about when luxury met IoT. Carlos, the floor is yours.
Okay, this is Carlos Belsué. I'm the CEO of Armilian Genève, and I came here to talk about luxury, that it's quite different to the things that you are accustomed to be in this kind of events. So we are going to make a trip that we made 4 years ago when we started developing the first jewel that can be used for the Internet of Things, for payments and for accessing. So, first of all, what we made 4 years ago was to try to get an approach to the customers that we wanted to attract to our product and to take to our product. So, we realized that there is 2 million people in the world that are considered high net worth individuals. That means that owns more than $5 million and we were studying how these people act, how is these people lifestyle, and what these people have. So what they have mainly, first of all, of course, they have wealth, but also they have access to all the things that this wealth provides them. I mean, supercars, homes, all the kind of luxurious things that that they are accustomed to purchase and so on. Then we made another question: what they really need when they can have everything. So we realized that these people, first of all, needs more time, because they are involved in a lot of things, and when you ask them, first of all, they tell you that they need time. But also, one of the other things that they always said is that they need more freedom. Sometimes they need to be unplugged. They need to be unconnected to the world, but having the good things that technology is providing them. So most of them tell you, sometimes I will really crash my phone because I want to have like some quality time, but I would love to have something, I mean, not to lose the comfort of technology. So all these things together made us think. Then we realized that all of them not need but wish symbols. All these people are wearing Patek, are using Aston Martin, are paying with a Centurion, Amex Centurion card, and they are doing because they consider that those symbols represent what they wanted to get in life. So we took all this together and we started the development of something that can attract to these people to the Internet of Things. So now we will go to the approach to the Internet of Things in luxury. So what was the first challenge that we faced? First of all, materials that in the wearables world are always rubber, plastic. We face that there is some physical laws that put some problems into use NFC technology, access technology using gold, for example. I'm talking about conductivity of the precious metals, and I'm talking about the Faraday cage effects, okay? There is also another issue, talking about technology. And if you know the brand Vertu about phones, you will know what that we are talking about. Is the obsolescence. Most of the luxury brands that worked with technology realizes that customers are accustomed to get long lifetime products. They are accustomed to own automatic watches that can be that can be used by next generations. I'm talking about long life products. And they realize that when they buy a mobile phone, in 2 years they need to replace it. So it's a challenge that we wanted, to change if we wanted to go and to create a really, really, really good product that can be accepted for these kind of people. So, in terms of the technology that we wanted to bring to them, we wanted to bring them the possibility of payment and the possibility of security access. Is what what I talked at the beginning. They have wealth and they have access to different issues, different properties, and they wanted to access to them. So now here's our solution. First of all, I will do now the presentation of the product. Because probably you will understand a bit more what we are talking about when talking about our million. So, first of all, we consider that the most important thing that our customer will want is payment. And we call it payment with style. So now, with one bracelet, you can be wearing it, and you will be paying just approaching to the terminal. And of course, for high-value payments, you will be putting your PIN. The solutions that we are offering now to our customers is a prepaid solution since February this year. End of this year, we will offer a debit solution. All of those two backed by MasterCard. And hopefully, March, April of next year, we will be also providing a tokenized solution inside of our bracelets. So the way of payment is not only style, but it's smart. We are offering also the technology that it's in the processing area used with our payment, with our bracelets. I just recently came from Middle East, and for the Eastern markets, we are offering a Sharia compliant product. First of all, not in gold, needs to be in titanium, in one of our models in titanium, in terms of material. But in the terms of payments, we can block on these models the possibility of payments in gambling, alcohol, or other kind of service that are against the Sharia rules. So we are offering a payment method with a style, but also with some features that comes behind. What we are offering also, we are offering access to supercars. Of course, we are using a two-way technology. We are using two chips, different chips in different areas. For payments, it's in the bottom, so we will pay in the terminal like this, not like this that we consider a bit complicated, especially if you are grabbing something and so on. So we studied a bit the most comfortable way to do it. So payments will come like this, but when accessing to your car, you will do like this and opening. You know that now, and that car industry is working in a group called the Car Connectivity Consortium, with also with NXP, also with Apple, with Samsung, Mercedes, Toyota. Most of the brands involved in all this are working together. All the brands or most of the brands are already some models that are in the market using NFC access. Mercedes E-models are already have the possibility of accessing with passive NFC. They provide you like a credit card that you can do it. That also can be linked to our bracelet. Of course, we can offer the personalization to any car to make some installation and easily link to your bracelet. And of course, the home accessing. It's already the most important brands working in the security access in the lock industry are working with NFC accessing solutions. One of the most important, as Abloy, develops a system that it's all around the world because it's a very, very, very developed brand, and that can be easily linked with our bracelet with just one card that they provide in the lock. You open the circuit, you put your bracelet, you close the circuit, and this lock will be already prepared to your bracelet, or with a computer that with a computer software that they provide you when you make your installation at home. You can easily link to any of our bracelet. Also, if you provide this bracelet, if you have family and so on, you can provide access to different areas or block these different areas. It's not our technology. We are using some other's technology for making a product that has, but that the customer journey is quite, adapted to their lifestyles. Let's talk about the product itself, the bracelet. Yes, yes, I'm on time. So it's mainly it's ceramic core, titanium. This model is gold, and Swiss made, of course. We are a Geneva company. We use the watch industry, the watch ateliers, to make the quality, the right quality to our product. So, of course, we are working with limited edition of 10 units, depending the designs and the materials. And we can also make one by one unit, specific bespoke models. okay? In terms of our technology, most important thing is a non-battery product, it's a passive product. So it's the same concept that watch industry is doing with automatic watches. So our customers, most of them are watch enthusiasts. They have 2 wrists, and they would love to have the wrist, the Patek, and the bracelet. Of course, talking about automatic watches, it's not possible, you know, to implement a solution in the automatic watch, because it would be a solution of NFC payments, because with an automatic watch, if you approach to one terminal, it will be magnetized. So it's something that watch enthusiasts really hate. In terms of lifestyle, I was talking at the beginning. What we are providing time, the needed time, we provide time. You can be using it anytime, anywhere. It's always ready to use. You don't need to take out your phone, check your wallet, and so on. It's always in your wrist. We are providing also freedom, mainly no batteries. You don't need to charge, no plug, nothing. And of course, it's waterproof. You can go to swim. If you are in your yacht, you can go to the beach club without any problem, because some water falls on it. And at the end, it's a symbol. What we use as a concept is a new platinum card symbol. People consider that like the most important symbol of wealth, the platinum card, the Amex Platinum Centurion cards, and so on. So we created an upgrade of this. We create a new level of luxury in payments. So if you have any questions, thank you for. Not at this moment. You need to, in the moment that you buy your bracelet, you need to make a KYC process in the app that you download, and then it will be activated. You receive a PIN, so the security that we are using now, it's under a PIN number. Of course, if you lose it or something, you have in the same app the possibility of blocking. If you don't block it, at this moment, yes. But we are working in it's something that, you know, that it will be taking some time, by a passive biometric validation. That would mean, the solution that we are working in is you take your bracelet, it's active, so it's not active. So you will be putting, close with a connected device. You get your biometric validation, then you activate, and then the bracelet is active. So you can pay and so on. If you remove it, in the moment that you open, the activation is over. So this is the next stage in security that we are working with. In this time, we just offer the PIN validation that it's like any credit card that you are using.
Thanks. I have a question for you, Palais. We have a good example of a launch in 2018 with like a specific sector in the luxury sector with this bracelet. In which regions do you expect to sell or to find the most interest?
Okay. Actually, we are working in Europe as our. We have our PIN license for the SEPA area, so we can offer the product in Europe. We have a good partner that is present here that is giving us the access to the Russian market, so we can be. We are already. Showcasing the product, working together with this partner in private banks in Europe. And I recently come from the Middle East, and I can tell you that the Middle East is really a really important market. And there we are working in a collaboration also with one of the national banks in the area for issuing the product for their customers.
A lot of interest for this new solution. So thanks, Carlos, for
Thank
coming
you.
and sharing the launch of your solution. Very interesting. And I'm sure that after you can look at the bracelet. Not sure that you can bring one with you, but definitely. So now let's start with our panel discussion to finish this this morning. I would like to ask Michelle, Håkan, Michael, Colin, and Gary to join me on stage. And the objective of this panel discussion. So the good thing is we have enough seats for everybody. So. Which was not the case at the beginning of this morning. So at least we'll be able to have to sit and have a chat. Before the objective now is we had some compelling, insightful presentation. The objective is to share as well what we feel about the market, about the drivers, the challenges, and the outlooks. But before doing so, are there any questions from the presentations that you in the audience would like to answer? Or maybe not yet, and it will come later. So if you have any questions, just put your hands up and we'll be happy to discuss. Talking about the IoT, we have seen through the different presentation this morning that there was really a shift in terms of initiatives, solutions, use cases being in 2040 or actually in 2018. From your perspectives, what are the key drivers underpinning the growth of IoT? Who would like to start?
I'd say the increasing power of the trusted platform, the smart card chip. You've got good compute power there. You can do some interesting things.
So a good infrastructure to start with. What else would you say in terms of the levers, the drivers?
I think there's many things which all come together. It's no one thing in its own right. So we've got tokenization, low-cost cloud computing, the availability of broadband internet in a number of places, Wi-Fi capability on smaller devices, and the processing power that we're now getting in the smaller chips. This enables people to think about the solutions that they want to bring to market and how they can connect them to the internet and benefit from that.
Yes, I'd agree with Gary. I think the biggest driver is low-cost connectivity at the home. So how do I get Wi-Fi in my home that's where I have high enough broadband where I can run many, many devices at the same time, and my neighbors can do the same thing. And in the U.S., we often share internet with our entire street, and so we may have 1 gig of broadband, but at 7 o'clock when everybody's online shopping or streaming Netflix, that just craters down, and everything is driving really slow, and everything kind of disconnects from your Wi-Fi. So until that gets to a point where Wi-Fi is reliable, easy to connect to, and has the bandwidth to drive a lot of devices, I think we're going to still have this struggle to get everything connected and working together.
So indeed, the basic technology, or basic in terms of Wi-Fi and all the aspects related to security in terms of tokenization platform, I think it's a key contributor. Håkan, what would you say from your perspective?
I mean, you guys are really pinning it down. I think you're spot on. I got nothing more to add here in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that I have anything to add. I think tokenization was a key word here in terms of payment capability and being able to layer the credentials, kind of drop them wherever.
Yeah. And I agree, but just to have a bit of debate, I disagree as well. A couple of years ago, they were still the same. Like you could challenge that in some geographies, you had tokenization already existed with the Apple Pay and Apple Watch that started really the tokenization in the industry. Wi-Fi had. I think that's also what is changing is a customer mindset.
having mobile wallets out there, and Michael, you shared some interesting stats about Apple Pay, Android Pay, or the X Pay. The thing that we can see more and more things coming on, people getting used, be it in the luxury sector, we saw with Carlos. From your perspective, do you feel that we're reaching a tipping point in terms of consumer usage or consumer awareness?